Hello again, fellow Dice Masters. Welcome back to DM Dice Masters. This is Diane. For today's topic, I'd like to talk about the Professor X Global and the proper way to use it. So here he is, Professor X. This card comes from the Uncanny X-Men set, and this version happens to be Professor X Trainer, the rare version. Each version has the global, and you are going to either have to have this card or your opponent will have to have this card in order to take advantage of the global. Okay, so first up, what I'd like to do is just go ahead and try to demonstrate how the Professor Global works. What you want to do is obviously try to roll masks. But let's just say that I happen to roll something for my characters. I want to buy a character my first turn. And then I save a wild and a mask to go ahead and try to do Professor X on my opponent's turn. And I'll explain why it has to be on my opponent's turn in just a moment. So continuing on with the example here, I'm going to first use this fist and shield, and I'm going to buy an Ant-Man die, which is 2 cost. So I try to keep my dice separated here. And then that's the end of my turn. I'm going to hold on to this energy to use on my opponent's turn so I can use the Professor X Global. Now the reason I need to wait on my opponent's turn to do the global is because I cannot go ahead and move energy that I have spent on my turn. I can't do anything with it. It's what they call out of play or in transition. So I would need to wait for my opponent's turn, in which case my dice that I had spent on my turn would go from being out of play or in transition, and then it would just go to my used pile. So once my opponent's turn comes around, and it's during their main phase, they've done what they wanted to do, they've fielded some characters, they've maybe purchased something, they have to go ahead and pass me priority, meaning that they have to give me a chance to go ahead and use globals. And that is the time we can go ahead and use the mask and the wild that we saved to go ahead and do the Professor X Global. Okay, so what we do is go ahead and we pay a mask, we'll do that first, to move 2 sidekicks over to our prep area. And the wild, there's only 1, so we won't be able to move 2. But this is the neat thing about doing this global during your opponent's turn. On your opponent's turn, dice that you spend go directly to your used pile. There's no out of play or transition period for the dice that you spend during your opponent's turn. So this little guy here that I just used previously to do the Professor X Global, I can now use that wild that I had left over and move that over to my prep area as well. And there's the first step. So here is where we get to see why the Professor X Global is so amazing. The last turn would have been my first turn. So now we're on my second turn. So I have, my 4 dice, my sidekick dice that I would have drawn from my bag. But now I also have 3 extra dice that I get to add to that roll from utilizing the Professor X Global on my opponent's turn. And this is why this global is so amazing, so abused, so loved, so hated by so many, is because it allows you to just get an insane amount of dice, what they like to refer to as ramping up, getting a lot of dice, and then you're just able to go ahead and overwhelm your opponent with either a bunch of little guys that you might purchase, or say ramp up to one of your bigger guys in a big hurry. Okay, so let's continue on and we will play out this demo turn 2 here. So let's go ahead and roll those 7 dice. This is actually pretty good in the World of Professor X, masks and wilds are your friend. So to continue on with my example here, what I'll do is, this actually works out perfectly. I'm going to go ahead and buy this 3-cost Black Widow. She goes directly into my used. Purchase characters directly to your used, and the dice that I spent to purchase her will remain out of play or in transition until my opponent's turn. So now it's my opponent's turn, and I've just been passed priority, and we get to see once again how things get a little bit nuts. So get to Professor X once, Professor X again, and one more time. So 3 times I got to Professor X. So I don't know if you notice here, but when turn 3 comes around, my turn 3, I'm going to be rolling all of these dice. This is the 4 that would have been left to go into my dice bag that I would draw, and these are all the ones that I prepped. So again, this demonstrates how nutty the Professor X Global can get when done properly. Now I'd like to take a step back for a moment and set the board up the way it was for my turn 2. I want to show that it is possible to go ahead and do the Professor X Global on your turn, and there are certain situations where it is more desirable to go ahead and use Professor X on your turn rather than your opponent's. One such case would be, say your opponent is utilizing the Elf Thief from the new D&D set. Well, we don't want to leave energy here just for that, annoying little thief to go ahead and steal. So what we want to do is go ahead and use the energy on our turn, so we're still able to ramp slightly. It's not ideal, but we're still able to ramp, and we're trying to keep our opponent from getting their little grubby hands on it. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate that for you. The ideal play here, rather than moving 2 over, would be just to move the 1 at a time. So what you could do is, and keep in mind, on your turn, energy that's spent goes out of play or in transition. So I would spend 1 to bring 1 over, another 1 to bring that over. So again, it's not really ideal. We still have an energy left over that the opponent could possibly steal. But again, at least we were able to, make good of a not ideal situation and kind of salvage our ramp a little bit and prep 2 dice. So there you have it, fellow Dice Masters. That was a quick rundown on the proper way of how to use the Professor X Global. I hope you found that information informative, and once again, thank you for watching DM Dice Masters. This is Diane. Take care.